The diencephalon consists of the epithalamus, the thalamus, and the hypothalamus. The roundish structure at the very top here, this is the thalamus. The epithalamus kind of hangs off the back there like a, something in parentheses. And the hypothalamus hangs off the front here, and then this little piece here dangles is the pituitary gland. So the hypothalamus and the thalamus, they can be sometimes hard to locate or differentiate from each other because there isn't really a distinct boundary between them. And we find that happens in the brain a lot, that we have these diffuse areas that we are defining. The epithalamus is also known as the pineal gland. In truth, it's not really a nervous organ. It's more than an endocrine organ that releases a hormone. But it's made of secretory neurons, technically making it part of the nervous system. The epithalamus, it releases melatonin, which is a hormone that regulates your sleep-wake cycle. That cycle is also called your circadian rhythm. Melatonin is, as the name indicates, it's made from melanin. And this renders the pineal gland as like a very darkly stained area on images, lending to its use as a landmark on MRI or CT scans. Does melatonin make you sleep? Kind of. It can, but it needs to be part of a routine, signaling to your brain that you are ending your day and that you need melatonin. This is why bedtime routines are really important for kids. They're also important for adults. A bedtime routine triggers your pineal gland to release melatonin, increasing the chances that you will get to sleep more easily. However, cortisol, which is a stress hormone, also plays a part in your sleep-wake cycle. So it's not just about melatonin, it's about your stress levels and the other hormones you're making. There is an interesting condition known as non-24 disorder. This is a condition in which your body doesn't play to a sleep-wake cycle. And this can happen to people living in the Arctic Circle, where for like 9 months the sun doesn't fully set, and then for another 3 months it doesn't fully rise. Blind people also have trouble maintaining their sleep-wake cycle. I read a paper about a non-24 study where they housed some blind people at a very, very busy Manhattan hospital, where it was pretty much impossible to tell the activity level from day to night. The thalamus is also called the gateway to the cerebrum. That doesn't mean anything really. It's not the gateway to the brain, but it is this like telephone operator for the cerebrum or the big brain hat. Your cerebrum is your seat of consciousness, and the thalamus takes all incoming sensory information from your body and routes it to the correct place in the brain. So incoming information from taste buds gets routed to the gustatory cortex. Incoming information about body temperature gets routed to the hypothalamus. Let's highlight the thalamus on all three of these pictures here, right? This is a frontal picture. This here is a transverse picture. And here's our thalamus right here. And then here is our sagittal picture. And the hypothalamus is right there. On the transverse section in the middle, you can see the thalamus it's at the dead center of the cut, right? Not these. Well, guess you won't make that mistake. On the coronal or the frontal section, the egg-shaped structure of the thalamus, it's under that third ventricle. And you can also see on that picture the choroid plexus, which is on the third ventricle. The thalamus, along with a bunch of other areas in the brain, it's part of something called the reticular formation. For right now, let's say that the reticular formation is a whole bunch of neurons that keep you awake. It's this formation that determines if you are someone who can study in the cafeteria, or if you are like me and you need to study in a corner of the library where nobody else would ever walk. So this collection of neurons, it determines if your children will sleep through the fire trucks coming to save the burning house next door, or if you sleep through it and your spouse has to tell you about it at breakfast. The hypothalamus, it does a lot, a lot of things. It is an organ that defies classification into an organ system. And this is because it is made of neurons, but those neurons also secrete hormones. So just like the pineal gland. As you can see, there are tons of nuclei or cell bodies in the thalamus, represented by all different colors there. And each of these cell bodies is responsible for monitoring changes and set points in the body. I don't require you to know the activity of all these individual nuclei, nor do I even require you to know what the names of them are. What is important right now is that the hypothalamus is in charge of monitoring body temperature and osmolarity, which is the balance of salt and water. If you are too hot or too cold, it is the hypothalamus that will make you sweat or shiver to reverse the change of body temperature. In the same way, the hypothalamus can sample your blood to determine if you're dehydrated or overwatered. And yes, there is something such as water poisoning. Parkinson's is a disease that erodes the function of the hypothalamus. Patients with Parkinson's might say, oh, it doesn't feel hot to me, or they might present at the ER with horrible dehydration and say, I don't feel thirsty. And this is because even though they are hot, they are dehydrated. Their hypothalamus is no longer doing its part by monitoring these things and producing an output. Just a side note, Alzheimer's presents the same way at the ER, usually with people dehydration and body temperature and confusion. Because the hypothalamus has to sample your blood to know its temperature or to know its osmolarity, we say that the blood-brain barrier is, quote, thin around the hypothalamus. And this just means that there is less protection around the neurons of the hypothalamus. When organs have a thin blood-brain barrier, we call them circumventricular organs because they are circumventing the blood-brain barrier. The hypothalamus is part of the limbic system, which is a collection of structures in the brain that work on emotions and behaviors. You can see some, but not all, of those structures involved with the limbic system here, including the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the cingulate gyrus. All of these organs work together to produce emotional outputs. For example, my husband will leave the garbage in the kitchen overnight, and the next day it will be like a very diseased small animal has died in it. So he'll ask me to tie up the bag before he takes it out, and no, I'm not suffering an unholy scent because he didn't take it out last night. So my husband, he'll start to gag as he even walks toward the garbage can, and he hasn't even smelled it yet. But his limbic system is kind of like taking over his judgment response, and his limbic system is producing this gag reflex, right? His frontal lobe and his limbic system are fighting with each other. His frontal lobe is saying, don't puke in the garbage, it's only going to make it worse. And his limbic system is saying, bleh. So emotions versus logic, right? Which one can win? And this is what is going on with addictive behaviors and a whole bunch of other behaviors that you just may not be able to stop, or behaviors where you're like, I don't know why I do that, right? Your frontal lobe is saying, I can't do this anymore. But your limbic system is saying, I want this. I need this. I have earned this cheesecake.